This is Second Wind.
Today's guest is my hero, a creative hero, and a fucking legend of advertising. Gerry, welcome to Second Wind.
Thanks for having me. It's good to see you guys.
Here's a few of the iconic campaigns that Gerry made, created, was part of. So Snickers Chefs, which was the original You're Not You When You're Hungry, and it was called
Not going anywhere for a while.
Not Going Anywhere for a while. Starburst Little Lad, which had a second wind itself on TikTok a couple of years ago. It got like 2 billion views. People were doing the little lad dance. I would argue, actually, Pinata is number one.
Number one.
And the performance is so
the
good.
The acting and the directing is perfection in that.
Yeah. Combos, Man Mum, which is kind of new to me. I didn't know about this one. I don't think this one ever made it to Australia. What I love about that one, it's like so tightly connected to the product. It's just a really funny way to talk about the product, right? Yeah. Which I think like is sort of a consistent thread in your work. And I think what the best advertising does, right? Like at the end of the day here, we're here to talk about products, but we want to do it in a way that is entertaining and sort of resonates with people. I heard the story of you ripping up the Supercell, gameplay feature focus brief and telling them they need to invest in these characters and storytelling and, build out, sort of lore behind these characters. And, I was on a call with Supercell yesterday and they were still talking about how character-led storytelling is underpinning, everything they do. So I think it's always been my fantasy to tear up a brief in front of a client and say, that's not what you need to do.
Well, it's a client brief. They're hiring you to figure it out.
So today we're going to start by asking the question, what are Gerry Graf's greatest spots of all time? Even though I would argue Pinata is number one, I haven't put these in order. I don't want to be here talking about rankings. What I'd like to do is watch the work, and then I want to, I want you to talk about them a little bit. Here we go. Pinata.
Is this what you were looking for? New chocolate-flavored Skittles?
I'm really sorry.
What did you think was going to happen, Stephen? Did you think you were going to hit me with that bat and little chocolatey candies would come pouring out?
Yes.
I have to buy my Skittles downstairs. Like everybody else! I'm just like everyone else!
Chocolate the rainbow. Taste the rainbow.
This was like 2 or 3 years in. We had full buy-in from the client and everyone was happy and,
things were flowing.
Yes. Skittles took 6 or 7 rounds to sell an idea, 8 months. It was a long time. I had creative teams quit just because, they had written 5 campaigns and nothing was selling and they went off to other places and stuff. They had just done really, really conservative kiddie advertising for 15 years from like 90 to, I don't know when that was, 2005 or something like
close-ups
that.
Of candy, people tasting it, reaction shots.
They always had taste the rainbow, good line, taste the rainbow. And some kid used to whisper like, taste the rainbow, like that.
I do remember that.
Yeah. But it was all like Disney kind of magic, it was like unicorns and Merlin and, some guy plants a Skittle in his cornfield and they grow Skittles corn and he dances and stuff. And then they basically ran the same campaign for 15 years. And then, sales started going down and we wanted to update it. And, one thing you do is you don't necessarily have to throw everything out. I always look for a brand and their connection to people. That Taste the Rainbow thing, people knew that, so you're not really going to throw that out. But how do you update it? And we had an incredible planning department at Chiat. And, they were doing a lot of research and people saying, yeah, people like the taste, but they always like the colors. They like the sound when they bounce them on the tables. There's more things than just tasting the rainbow. And the client liked that, so we're like, cool, you taste it, you see it, you hear it. And then, that became the campaign, Blank the Rainbow. And the thing that was hard to sell was we wanted to age up the humor. And they were very resistant to that until my account person came and she was talking to me and Scott Petrone and Ian Reichenthal. We were all working on it and said, make a rip of like music videos and movies and stuff of the type of comedy you want Skittles to be. And we did that. And they went to Cincinnati, Ohio. They went to a mall in Cincinnati and they videoed kids. They were talking to like 13-year-olds and they're like, do you like Skittles? They're like, yeah. And then they showed them our rip, like, could Skittles do this? They're like, yeah, they could do that. And we brought that back to the client and the client still wasn't sure. And what I said was, you own magic. No other brand, candy brand, owns magic. You've always been about magic. We're just kind of like updating the definition of magic. It doesn't have to be Merlin with his magic wand and stuff like that. It could be a man made out of a pinata. And when they finally got that we weren't just fucking around, you know, that it was strategically thought out and we were using brand equities, we finally sold it. And, you know, in the beginning, they used to go, oh, this is too weird. This is too weird. And then around the time when we made Pinata, we would show them spots and they're like, this isn't weird enough. You guys got to push it. We started doing a lot of Skittles stuff and we actually had some rules for the world we were creating because we were world building, you know? And the number one rule was in each spot, one piece of quote unquote magic exists, but it's normal in that world. People aren't amazed by the piece of magic. So no one reacts to a guy who's made out of a pinata. That's just the way that world is. You know, they're having a conversation. Why did you beat me over the head with a baseball bat? And the answer is, you know, logical. You're a pinata. I thought there were chocolate Skittles inside you. We finally got to this campaign because we had a lot of funny spots that all had magic in them, you know, basically weird stuff happening. But there wasn't a consistent thought around it. There were just a bunch of funny spots. And then I was talking with the planner and again, talking about there are other ways to enjoy the rainbow and crafted the line that ends every Skittles commercial. Like this one was chocolate the rainbow, taste the rainbow. So everything had that double thing to it. You know, I know when I figured that out, like the first ones we did were the senses: see the rainbow, taste the rainbow, feel the rainbow, taste the rainbow. You know, we were doing that. Once I figured that out, I knew that we had the campaign sold. I knew that was figured out and the client would love it, you know, and they did. And then, you know, the gang, they were incredible, like, creators working on it. Scott Petrone and Ian Reichenthal running that account. And they would, you know, they literally would come up with 100 to get to one, you know, and you would just know the one. You know, there's no setup punchline in that spot. It's just, and there's no explanation either. We would just know the great one when we saw it. And sometimes it took
It's very quiet too, you know, the first 20 or whatever is very quiet.
Yeah,
very
just quiet, but visually it's like, what the fuck is going on?
What's this guy?
You know what I mean? So you're paying attention. So you can play that off. It's very similar to the Midas touch one when the guy, everything he touches turns to Skittles. I remember my creative direction on that when they went to shoot that one was make sure it's depressing. You know? And that's another thing we did on all
like
Skittles.
He's sad about this power he has.
Well, I told you we had rules in this world, right? In another rule when we would be working on these is what would it be like to really have that magic power? We thought about that a lot, you know? This guy would get bashed in the head because he's a pinata, and it would be really sad if you shook a man on a bus and turned him into Skittles and he never saw his family ever again. And then you dumped his dead body on the table.
Were there any that the client killed that you were like, fuck, if only we could have made that one?
Honestly, no.
Okay, that's good.
No. The first round that we made, when we got approval, we shot them, we showed the rough cuts. They said this campaign is not running. They killed it after we shot it. They said it's too weird. And it got all the way up to the CEO of the company.
Wow.
Who I had known from working on Snickers years before.
Was that Mars at that point?
Mars, yeah. It was Mars. Paul Michaels. And he saw it. He's like, let's give it a chance. And they ran it, and it took off, and it worked.
Was there some particular moment where the client saw the impact or something that they were like, this, like, we're onto something here? Yeah,
candy advertising, and when you're working in that retail space, you get real feedback pretty quickly. It ran for a week and sales went up. Bang bang. Just like that.
As simple as that. I love it.
Simple as that, yeah.
Did we sell more candy? Okay.
Yeah.
So all right, pasta sauce next. Okay.
Pasta sauce.
Hey, Mom!
Parents in bed, but it's
Just need a clock.
That's why they taught you should always knock. He needs Ragu, 'cause growing up's tough. Give him Ragu, he's been through enough.
A long day of childhood calls for America's favorite pasta
Now,
sauce.
this I love. I'd never seen a commercial that took the perspective of the kid and advocated that being a kid is hard, along with like super catchy song, hit all the tabletop moments, but did it in a way that didn't feel cheesy.
Everything for a reason. I like to sell edgier, stranger, that kind of work. And if you want to do that, you have to have all your other boxes checked. You know, you really have to understand their business, have to have a really great strategy, and then jump to a really great insight. And then your work should be anchored to that brief that everyone agreed to, you know, and then you can go nuts and you're just arguing about this. They don't have anything else to kill it, you know?
Yeah. They
You know,
can't be
and
like,
this-
where's the product shot? Because you're like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
right
exactly.
there.
Yeah,
the
yeah, it's right
song
there.
is about Ragu.
Yeah,
It's
there
literally
you go.
about
We
Ragu.
knew we were dealing with Unilever. We knew what they were
Yeah.
looking for and stuff like that. So it was interesting brief. You know, you always ask a client, what do you got? Do you have a claim you can make or something like that? They're like, yes, we can say we're a kid's favorite pasta sauce, but we don't want to advertise to kids. We want to advertise to moms, because moms buy the pasta sauce. At the time, my nephew was like 5 years old, and he had written a little essay for like kindergarten. If I ruled the world, it would be okay not to eat your broccoli. Little sisters would be banned from your bedroom. You know, the dog would be yours. Basically, this 5-year-old bitching about life as a little kid. And I took a picture of it. I'm like, this is it. This is it. You know, life is hard, right?
Yeah.
We're talking to parents. Childhood is tough, right? We did a lot of research actually to
Yeah.
sell the campaign. You know, we talked to parents. You know, do you agree that when you were growing up, that
Yeah.
that it was hard? And they would go, yeah, like I didn't have any money. I had to do everything my parents said.
Yeah.
I didn't have any transportation except for a bicycle. You know, I had to go to school. And we're like, well, what about your kids? And you could see on their faces, they're like, oh my God, I've
So
become my
interesting.
parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we won them over in like a double whammy, you know?
So you advocate for the kid as a way to get to the parents.
Yeah, it's like, listen, you know, they've got a really tough life. The least you could do is give them their favorite pasta sauce.
And it's
That's-
nostalgic, right? Because it sort of throws back to your own childhood.
we decided we had actually stumbled into Miller time, you know, the old Miller time, you know, like working at the mines all day, and you know, at least it's Miller time. So that's basically what we based it off of. Childhood is really hard. At the end of the day, you know, come on home to Ragu. That's why the jar spins down the kind of the bar, you know, and that's where we mimicked all the product shots in the old beer commercials. They would show the hops and the grain and stuff. So we were mimicking those shots with the pasta and that. And then there used to be this old Lowenbrow commercial. Tonight's the night, might be something special, the beer you choose. And I'm like, we got to have a song. We got to have a Lowenbrow song. So that's where that song came from. So basically, after all that strategy and everything, we're like, we're going to make beer commercials for kids.
And where's the song? Because the song is so good. Who did the song? Where did that?
You know, I work with Andrew Sherman, who
Yeah.
owns Butter Music, and I've been working with him for 20 years. And I told him exactly what I just told you about Lowenbrow and this and stuff. And he'll say, send me some lyrics. He always needs lyrics. So, you know,
Yeah.
we wrote some lyrics and sent it to him, and then he just comes back with it, you know.
Yeah.
What'd you tell the kid that he saw in the room?
Your parents, you know, having sex.
I mean, what was he, like 11 or
He
12?
nailed
He's
it.
probably old enough.
He's like
right?
12. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one thing to note too is like, you know, I feel like being able to get great creative work out of a big corporation is really, really hard. Like Unilever or Mars, where there's all these layers of people who are trying to mitigate risk and trying to reduce risk, and they're scared of doing something different because they might make a mistake. Can you just talk about like operating in those big
Yeah.
corporate environments?
You can't be stupid. You have to realize what you're dealing with, you know? I love working on brands that have never done anything good, you know? So you get a lot of those at big corporate environments, you
'Cause
know?
the bar is low, right? If
Well,
you do something
the
great,
bar
it's
is
like,
low, and no one's done anything. No one's ever done
Yeah.
anything great for them. You know, you don't need another Apple ad, you know? Let's do a Ragu ad.
Yeah.
And I've done it a lot. There's always an advocate inside. Like I told you about the Mars CEO. He was our advocate. At Unilever, we had Mike Dwyer, who was the brand manager on Ragu. He was our advocate, letting us know the rigorous testing process. I'm coming from Saatchi and TBWA, so I already had clients that were like that. So I knew what it took to get through that. I had
and just to clarify, like you do this, the brief, the strategy, the ideas, they buy them, they make an animatic, they test the animatic, right, which is just like a basic version of the commercial, and then if it goes well, you revise it and then actually make the spot. Is that about it?
Yeah. So,
and that's like a year, probably almost, right? 6 months to a year, maybe.
With the big companies, it could take 6 months to a year. I also, like, when I hired my head of planning at Barton, she had extensive research experience. So she had worked with P&G and Google and this and their ad testing thing, and now she's on my side, so she knew how to kind of get through that as well. So and again, with these big corporations, I knew what they wanted, and if I could give them their product shots and all of that, there's still going to be a little wiggle room. So,
and did the CEO at Mars, was that person a convert because they'd seen the impact of great work in the past on sales?
Yeah.
Okay.
Paul Michaels at Mars. When I was at BBDO in the 90s, one of my first jobs, there were two sides. There was the Pepsi side and the everything else side, and I was on the everything else side. And we pitched and we won Snickers and M&Ms. And Paul Michaels came to the agency, gave a talk to the creative department, and he said, I know how this place works. Everyone wants to be on the Pepsi side, and you guys are over on this side. He's like, at the end of the year, I want everybody to be on this side. And I'll never forget that. I would work late nights knowing that there was someone on the other side who really wants something great.
What's your proudest piece of work out of those years?
Because
I didn't even mention M&Ms, did I? I didn't even mention that.
M&Ms was the first TV commercial I ever made, and I'm very, very proud of that. The M&Ms to this day, I was on the creative team that redesigned them with CGI. Yellow and red wear white sneakers to this day, so we're talking 30 years later. And the reason they wear white sneakers is they were going to wear black, but red looked too much like Mickey Mouse. So the animator was trying to come up with what they should wear. And my dad, Barton F. Graf, always wore K-Swiss white tennis shoes. And I sent him a picture, the animator of white K-Swiss. So 30 years later, the M&Ms are still wearing my dad's sneakers.
Let's do combos. You ready for this?
Sorry, Mom.
We thank you for this bounty of pretzels filled with creamy tasting cheddar cheese that we're about to receive. And please let Dallas cover the spread this weekend.
Combos. What your mom would feed you if your mom were a man.
Let's do the next one.
Got a sec, Mom?
Yeah.
There's some stuff going on at work. All the guys think that I'm never gonna make anything of myself. I feel like they're all better than me. Maybe I should just quit.
How do you think they get the cheese inside that little pretzel? I'm all laid down.
Combos. What your mom would feed you if your mom were a man.
Good.
So Combos is owned by Mars. So it was the Skittles Starburst crew. You go back to strategy. So combos are pretzels and cheese. So our strategy was they're not good for you, but they're a little bit better for you than normal junk food. That was the strategy, right? And the Man Mom is the perfect example of that. What your mom would feed you if your mom were a man. Mom would give you good food. Dad would give you chocolate cake. And that was the idea. I remember they came in with the line. The four of them came in my office, showed me the line. I'm like, great, done. They're like, you want to see scripts? I'm like, I don't have to.
What did they say?
It said they go, here, we have an idea. We have a character named Man Mom, and we have a line what your mom would feed you if your mom were a man. And I was like, done. Just
Did the clients get it that quickly?
Yeah, with this one they did, because this came after we had done Skittles. craziness, and that was successful. We've done Starburst craziness, that was
You
successful.
guys were on a roll. Yeah.
We're on a roll. They said, "What do you got with this?" And we showed them. They're like, "Fine, let's do it."
How fun.
You know,
And they had good budgets back in those days.
pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
pretty
could
good
get-
budgets.
Yeah.
You know, and we were careful. There's no jokes at all about man or mom or anything like that.
Yeah.
All it is little family moments where the character, has a little bit of mom characteristics and a little bit of dad characteristics.
It's just the timing of that response. I think being a dad helps me appreciate this a bit more, maybe.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to go lay down. Like this kid's opening his heart and like looking for direction. And and that's the moment he talks about the product. It's so unexpected.
You're golden if your joke is talking about the product.
Yes.
He's talking about the product, but he's letting the son know, I didn't listen to a word and I don't care. You little whiny bastard. That's basically what he said.
And do you feel like you figured that out early on, that if I come up with a really funny way to talk about the product, clients will buy those spots?
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand advertising that doesn't talk about the product. You're trying to sell stuff.
You watch TV?
Yeah, no. Don't get
It's
I
all
mean,
over
I know.
it's
I
all
know.
over the television.
Hey, what are you doing?
I'm knocking down the playground.
Why?
We're gonna build a new power station.
What?
A power station. They make all sorts of noise and smoke. It's exciting.
Can we play there?
If you can get over the fence. Ready?
And actually, I asked about budget before, but none of these spots really look super expensive. They're all
No.
relatively straightforward environments.
Yeah.
Pretty
That was
small
Carrie
cast.
Keen. Let's see. Carrie Keenan was creative director. Dan Lucy and Nathan, the team on that. Yeah.
Like you didn't knock down the playground. It wasn't like, whoa, we're
Yeah,
gonna knock down
no.
the playground. That's the bit. It's like the smile is the bit.
Yeah. I'm smiling and telling you I'm going to knock it down. Because that's the idea. You can say anything with the smile. So. Yeah, I remember they came in and showed me the idea, and I'm like, this is fucking great. This is canned gold. This is awesome. They're like, great. So we're done. I'm like, no, your scripts suck. They're like, what? You just said the idea is great. I'm like, it is great. Your scripts suck though. So go write some more to say,
And this was Unilever too, right? Another giant.
A P&G.
P&G, the other one. Right. Okay.
So I go write some more scripts, and they wrote some more scripts, and they were better, but they weren't great because, again, there's no setup punchline joke. It's just a conversation. So it's tricky to make it funny.
It's almost the magic again, right? It's like,
yeah.
It's not.
So I even before, when we sold it to the client, we told them we wanted to keep writing scripts, and they were okay with that. We had a good relationship with P&G. So I wanted Harold Einstein to direct it. He's a phenomenal director, my old writing partner, actually. And I sent the creative team out to LA to write with him. And they were complaining about it. I'm like, go out there, it's boot camp. Write scripts with the director. And they did. And I'm like, you'll thank me later. You can get to a great idea, but then you got to go execution. You got to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and not stop, to elevate it to something great.
Everything you've talked about is very systemic. It seems like there's the baseline system of how do we sell it. Then there's the world building and there's rules around that. Like, has that evolved for you over the years?
Things move faster these days. You don't have as much time to think, which makes it trickier. So you have to think smarter. It was starting to happen at BFG. We were talking back in the day, working 6 to 8 months on the Skittles campaign. Everybody wants things right away now. We're looking at TV commercials here, right? So traditional TV commercials, that was like the ultimate creative expression back then. So there's a lot of concentration there. These days, with digital stuff and social stuff, there's another, way to do it that I had to adapt to, which was just find an idea, write a lot, find a way to produce them cheaply and get them out there. Then you see what gets kind of sticky, and then you kind of double down on that idea. That was a new skill I had to learn, midway through Barton, I would say.
Yeah, just because as you were talking about sending the creative team to write with Harold, like that wouldn't happen anymore. Like it would be.
Well, it could with Zoom, right? But it would probably
Wouldn't
be
be the
like
same.
it would be like a 2-hour session, right? On Zoom, people staring at each other. So
The brand might just go to an influencer before the brief even gets to you to do that thing now as well.
I believe in breakthrough ideas and creativity. When you get a breakthrough idea that is creative, is very successful, and it sells a ton of stuff. So you can do a lot of influencer stuff and, kind of like grope around in the dark and seeing what will work. And maybe you'll get a short-term gain, but real true ideas that are attached to a product still have an incredible power to sell.
Gerry, can you talk about your creative process a little bit? I often refer to something you told me, which was that it's about being together and being apart. And you had mentioned walking home. A lot of great ideas came to you.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I love research. That's the first thing I do. I just, personally, I try to learn as much about a brand or a product that I'm doing. And then my planners that's their first job, the first week, just like go dig up everything you can. I just want to know. I want to know what, the history of they've done, the past advertising. I want a little bit of research, what consumers think. And I just love, that's like the fertilizer. I can't.
How much of that is on the computer versus in the real world? Because you mentioned, going to Cincinnati to do testing with the teenagers.
Mostly
in the real world?
Well, there's a lot. Mostly all in the computers. Even when I'm reviewing stuff. But back in the day at Barton, I had an entire wall that was corkboard, and they would just fill it all up just with everything, and I could just pace back and forth and look at it. And I really missed that, but still just a complete info dump. And I always tell clients, just send us send us your decks, send us everything. So that's the first part. And then I love spending time with planners and getting them to give me, fine, you have all the research. Everyone can get all the research. What's the insightful jump that you're going to make, And, the best planners I've worked with, I didn't come up with this, but the success I've had with planners that I share with other planners is a brief is not a pirate map. It is not X marks the spot, do this. A creative brief, in my mind, is an arrow that says the great ideas are that way. So just walk that way and you'll find a great idea. That's how I picture briefs. That's what I want to give creative people, So that's the beginning. And then it goes out to whoever's working on it. And yeah, you give them the big brief, everyone gets together and you talk and blah, 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 then go away and do your thing. And then they come back to me or whoever, and then they go away, and then we bring in some more people. We bring the planners and the account people to make sure we know about the business and stuff. And then we get to the idea, and then we go to the client, and then many times, we'll show the client stuff, and, rarely do you sell stuff on your first presentation. So we've come together with the client. They've told us we've gone away. We don't like to go away forever and then get back. So we're always in touch with the client saying, hey, we're going down this angle. We're going down this angle. And they'll go, oh, don't do that. Or, hey, maybe. And then we get back together again.
And how do you persuade clients? That's one of the real arts of our business, is trying to persuade clients to do something that might be different or scary.
You can't look like you're trying to sell them. People say, oh, did you sell that idea? Like I said before, first things first is you need people in the room that understand their business better than they do, and that is some of the suits or the account people that I've worked with, that we get your business, And
it's really getting the consumer, right? Like we talk to teenagers in Cincinnati in the mall.
That's strategy. I'm talking about, your job, I think, as an account person, a lead account person, is to know their business, how they make money, what their sales are, what their infrastructure is like. Know their business. And again, don't give them any reason to kill, creative ideas except for the creative. So you have a whole idea. I'm like, oh, you don't get our business. We do it that way. You just avoid those, and have strategy that knows their consumer better. And then creative, we do that better. So, you are always trying to be the smartest people in the room.
And do you often point to the brief? I think the brief is always sort of, you agree on the brief. The client ideally signs off the brief, right? And then when you're reviewing creative, you say, well, this is our target, the brief. It's not really what you think or react or feel necessarily. It's like we're using the brief to guide our ideas, not your gut.
Yes.
Is that something you do a lot?
Yes.
Yeah.
I always get, whoever has the power to buy or kill work has to sign off on the brief. Start there.
And
then
if that's the CEO,
you gotta get, but you gotta get it in front of them, but when the creative people go off, I just say go, just start thinking. Don't worry about the brief, especially for first round. Just it's your job as a creative director or a CCO to go, okay, this is the brief they agreed to. We have some amazing idea. Can I make some adjustments without destroying the idea to tie it back down here? So that's, a bit of the process too.
You mentioned the Mars CMO coming in at BBDO and kind of motivating everyone to take that challenger approach even inside the agency. One of the challenges that we see day to day is that I think agencies and brands are partners anymore. It feels very combative to a degree, or a bit more of a vendor relationship versus partnership. What do you think the modern marketer can do to help get better work out of their agencies?
After that speech, I would work through a weekend for that guy, work my ass off for that guy. A lot of what you were saying, I think is happening because there's so many projects. We'll work together for 3 months and we respect you creatively, but you are kind of a bit of a vendor. I have a Mars-like relationship with my Lay's team. Technically, we're on projects, but it's been do another year. And there's no real agency client split, maybe because we've been successful, but we all get together and find out the best ways to sell it to upper management. We're always.
So this, I think, is the greatest promotional spot I've ever seen.
Hot and ready pizza for $5. What hot and ready pizza for $5?
Get a hot and ready pepperoni pizza for $5 or a
What is that, like 6 seconds? Perfect. I love that.
15 seconds.
I know, but the actual, like the end bit is like probably 7 or 8 seconds, right? So you're really working.
We were 8.5, 6.5. That was the deal. I do not believe in cutting down 30s to make 15s. If you want a 15, let me craft something for that 15 seconds, and I would say, we did as many 15 second videos as we did 30s for Little Caesars. I think the 15s are my favorite. There's a lot of them. And it's hard to come in and, create a bit of entertainment, tell a joke or something like that. But I had a creative group that were just fantastic at this, not just craft a bit of humor in 8.5 seconds, but craft a bit of humor about the deal that you're talking about in 8.5 seconds. In the store. Yeah.
Someone buying a pizza, make it funny. That's a very hard brief.
Yeah.
And then I'm not gonna show all the kayak spots, but I'm gonna show Frank because I think it's amazing.
Frank is
spots, but I'm gonna show Frank because I think amazing.
Frank is great.
Why does Frank Reardon spend hours searching dozens of travel sites instead of comparing hundreds of sites at once with kayak.com?
Someday, I'll create a technology that compares hundreds of travel sites at once, and you will never get to use it.
Why? Because Frank Reardon is banned from kayak for life.
And that was improv, right? The raspberry.
It was not in the script. It was blank. It's like he does something, he twirls his hand, and we probably shot him walking away, and he came up with like that. So, once again, it all goes back to strategy. Kayak was like the number 5 travel site behind Expedia. The other travel sites were actual travel agent. Like Expedia had a inventory of flights. So if you searched on Travelocity, they would show you the flights that they had. Kayak was a search engine, but nobody knew that. The first thing we told Kayak is stop acting like all the other travel sites. No more pools, no more hotels. We're going to treat you like a tech company, like a search engine, like Google. Back then, I think the Facebook movie had just come out. I'm like, oh, cool. We need a backstory. We need a tech backstory in college. Frank Reardon was a bully that I went to high school with. We cast the guy to look like Frank Reardon's Facebook page picture. He had long metal hair and a big mustache. So if people Googled Frank Reardon, it would go to Frank Reardon's page. I tracked him down. I called him up and I'm like, can I use your name? He's like, yeah. So then not a lot, but a few people were like kind of like, hitting up Franco and you're an asshole, you're a bully, blah, 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 and then it got big enough where the real Frank Reardon posted a video on his Facebook page asking Kayak if he can come back on. And the CMO said no.
I remember that.
Yeah.
It was a nice little follow-up. Okay, we're almost out of time, so we'll do Little Lad.
Okay.
You tried these berries and cream Starburst?
Pardon me? What kind of Starburst did you just say?
Berries.
And berries. Berries and what else?
And cream.
Berries and cream. Oh, hurrah! Berries and cream, berries and cream. I'm a little lad who loves berries and cream. Berries and cream, berries and cream. Oh, I'm a little lad who loves berries and cream.
Not hard to sell. We say the name of the new product like 20 times, berries and cream. Most of the time, creative people say the first ideas aren't good. That's mostly true, but this was first idea for everybody. The brief was introduce the new flavor berries and cream. And I think Wimbledon was going on at the time and they have their like berries and cream breakfast, So I remember seeing it and going, oh, berries and cream, la-di-da, And then Scott Petro and Ian Reichenthal saw it and they're like, hey, berries and cream. And then the creative team got it and they came back. They're like, there's an English guy. And they're like, okay, make it interesting though. So, we're like, okay, where is he going to be? And then you're making creative decisions to make it interesting. So, okay, he's at a bus station. Okay.
So the Greyhound bus station.
The Greyhound bus station. And he's dressed like Little Lord Fauntleroy, which is these old classic movies about this like 8-year-old English kid, but he's 35 years old, so you're just making creative decisions to make it interesting. And then he sings a song of berries and cream. And this one, this is 05, 04, something like that. YouTube had just started. It was a wasteland. There was nothing on YouTube. And we were noticing with our Skittles commercials that teenagers were reenacting our commercials and putting them on YouTube. It was very strange. So with this one, we're like, they're probably going to do the same thing to this. So we shot a digital spot where the little lad tells a story about his dead mother who always loved berries and cream. And then he teaches you the song and he teaches you how to do the dance. And that got more views on YouTube than the commercial did on YouTube. It went fucking crazy. So that's back in 05. And that's why it took off on TikTok. Because
15 years later or something?
Yeah, 15 years later. Yeah. Because it's a song and a dance. And there's an instructional video on how to do the song and the dance. So somebody just uploaded it 15 years later. And at the beginning of TikTok, that's all it was lip syncing and doing a dance, right?
And I haven't looked at it recently, but I was like 2 billion views for that.
Yeah, it was in the billions back in 21, so it's probably more.
Well,
yeah.
Gerry, I know we're out of time. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show. Thank you.
I love going down memory lane. Yeah. I love talking about this stuff. Love hanging with you guys. It's been fun.